Okay, thank you very much. I don't quite know how to follow that talk. Maybe with a bit of colour. Thanks. So good afternoon, and thanks, Gordon, Perth USAsia Centre colleagues, distinguished speakers, guests, consulate friends, ladies, gentlemen, for inviting Unesco to be a part of this great day. Let me begin by just re-emphasising what we've already heard, that our global ocean is one that covers 70% of the planet, has an intrinsic asset base of about $25 trillion or more, as a current annual gross marine product value of at least $3 trillion, as we heard this morning, and actually ranks 7th if we look at a ladder of national GDPs. So motivating this talk is that the planet's oceans are strongly interconnected and coupled with climate in both modulating and causing weather. And also noting that the oceanic phenomena that we feel near our coasts at very local levels connect to an expanding and branching cascade of medium to larger regional processes from oceanic through to global scales, if you like, analogous to the human cardiovascular system, which networks from the peripheral capillary areas to the body as a whole. So in these contexts, I've been asked today to highlight the UN-related framework for ocean science through the UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, or IOC. UNESCO is probably more commonly known for its World Heritage Areas, but it does have an IOC as a specific ocean science and knowledge transfer vehicle aligned with the S in the acronym, or the Science Division of UNESCO, and with very strong collaborative links with the likes of the World Meteorological Organization, the UN Environment Programme, and many other associated UN and even non-UN aligned programs. It's grown since 1960, from 40 to 148 member states as a functional autonomous body within UNESCO, and as the only so-called competent organisation for marine science within the UN, facilitating and promoting under its charter international cooperation and coordination of research, services, knowledge transfer, capacity building, understanding and predictability of the oceans and related climate, data and information management, and knowledge transfer for societal benefit, and supporting, as we also heard this morning, the blue economy goals and decision-making for sustainable development under the UN's SDG number 14, the Ocean SDG. The IOC's got a decentralised secretariat based at UNESCO Paris, but has its only Southern Hemisphere node located here in Perth, focusing on the wider Indian, Southwest Pacific and connecting oceans, and which in itself is co-sponsored by the WA and federal Australian governments in conjunction with UNESCO. And includes a secretariat, actually, of the 28 member state Intergovernmental Coordination Group for the Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning and Mitigation System, which is sponsored by the Australian government through the Bureau of Meteorology, and which was set up in 2006 as part of the UN's response to the tragic 2004 Boxing Day tsunami that occurred off Indonesia. In fact, it's headed up by my colleague, Dr. Srivanasa Kumar, who's here with us today, after having led for many years the establishment of the Indian National Tsunami Warning System out of Hyderabad. IOC then is naturally motivated by the profound challenges that exist in measuring, understanding, curating and applying knowledge for societal benefit on the complex behaviour of the oceans and associated climate. This relates to the fact that no one country alone, I think this is a generic point being made in other realms today, no one country alone can possibly do all of the work needed at the required oceanic and global scales, nor has any one country the mandate or the resources to actually go it alone. We absolutely must collaborate internationally for this, which is largely why the IOC was created in the first place and why it's now grown to 148 member states. And underpinning this is the fact that we live in an interconnected world of oceans and associated weather. Now, we're in Perth today, right on the Australian-Indian Ocean coastline, so we can conveniently turn to a very nice local exemplar of this point in the Lewin Current, which carries tropical waters along Western Australia from its far north to around the southwest corner and onto Eastern Australia, all of the time hugging the continent because of the Earth's rotation and sideways so-called Coriolis force. Studies from multinational, academic, institutional and Australian efforts, such as those supported through Australia's Integrated Marine Observing System, show the Lewin Current's long reach. And they also show that the current's waters derive from as far as the Central Pacific in the east to the Indian Ocean off Africa in the west, being part of a complex interconnected network of ocean-scale currents. Like many similar currents from all over the Indian Ocean, the Lewin Current for Western Australia has a profound effect on the state's marine biodiversity and fisheries, being responsible in large part for the transition of the biodiversity from tropical in the north to temperate in the south and to mixed in the middle. It shoots off large spinning eddies that cross over to the other side of the Indian Ocean, so it's not just a local effect, and it also takes in waters into its own body from the opposite direction in flow patterns that are only just now starting to be fully resolved. And things can get even more cryptic underwater. Subsea waves, called internal waves, which aren't visible from the surface, but they travel towards certain parts of the continental shelves with undersea crest to trough heights of up to 100 metres. They break on the seabed with great force and turbulence on marine ecosystems and infrastructure, and so marine managers and engineers have got a critical interest in the offshore ocean's underwater properties, because it's well offshore that these monstrous underwater waves are formed and start their journeys towards land. As an example of motivating cross-ocean issues, another example, the Indian Ocean experiences a phenomenon that's very similar and analogous and teleconnected to the El Niño-La Niña of the Pacific. This is called the Indian Ocean Dipole, where west and east sea surface temperatures can differ greatly in any given year and can then suddenly reverse from one year to the next, having a profound influence on the ecosystems, on the fisheries, currents, related weather, not only on the Indian Ocean rim, but also on weather far away, such as over central West Africa, China, and Southeast Australia. The Indian Ocean Dipole has a positive and negative impact on some 2 to 3 billion people, as do the annually reversing monsoons that are unique to the Indian Ocean. Extreme events like cyclones should also be added to this list. Cyclones gain strength from sea surface temperature patterns, and their tracks are strongly influenced by those patterns as they head for land. And I think the recent hurricanes, which we call cyclones, that impacted the US, and if we all viewed the regular CNN reports on those, we would have seen and understood through the interactions with journalists on how important the sea surface is to cyclones and hurricanes. These are just a few highlights from an incredibly diverse and complex spectrum of phenomena, and which underscore that we've got to work together to better understand and predict these critical processes. And the point is that the dynamics and manifestations of all these phenomena are fundamentally related to the ocean's properties at all scales and need to be monitored as much as do the atmospheres. So, the Global Ocean Observing System is one of the IOC's flagship programs set up for this purpose, involving satellite, sea surface, underwater, animal, robotic and ship-based measuring techniques. This program's been an amazingly successful but so far incomplete development over the past 25 years, and so it needs a renewed energy and commitment from IOC member states, with the facilitation of the program's Global Ocean Observing System Steering Committee, its multidisciplinary panels, and its framework for ocean observations. Another relatively recent issue profiled today in various ways that needs our attention is that of the exclusive economic zones established under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Sovereignty-related issues, sovereignty-related restrictions to multinational science teams entering those zones for collaboration mean that many of the critical processes that traverse into, out of, and through contiguous exclusive economic zones can't be examined properly. In this context, political leaders can play an important role in helping to unblock these geopolitical impediments and thereby facilitate scientific relationships amongst nations for their own clear mutual benefits. To that and other ends, we've already heard today, the IOC is also connecting with the Indian Ocean Rim Association as another high-level forum to try and facilitate collaboration and oceanic work for its members' mutual benefit. We note that Australia had an important role in re-energising this ministerial forum during its chairing in 2013 to 2015 under the current Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Julie Bishop, who was here earlier today. I'd like to end by mentioning a couple of new initiatives under the IOC, first at the Indian Ocean scale and then at the global scale. The first is a collaborative multinational scientific initiative known as the Second International Indian Ocean Expedition, which is involving now scientists from up to 50 countries and running to 2020 under the auspices of the IOC and a group called the Scientific Committee on Oceanic Research and the Indian Ocean Global Ocean Observing System Regional Alliance. It's more than just an expedition per se. It's actually a framework for integrated science, capacity building, relationship building through the vehicle of marine science, mentoring and legacy creation, all of which are discoverable on the expedition's website. It's now in full swing under an international steering committee, working under a voluntary framework of collaboration with nationally supported project officers to help run it here in Perth, Australia and in Hyderabad, India. Nearly 30 research initiatives and cruises have already been endorsed, and these are also making places available for early career scientists and stakeholders from developing countries under the capacity building theme that runs through the expedition. And it may well become one of the components of another prospective global scale initiative, being the so-called UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, 2021 to 2030. It's already received the endorsements of the President of the UN General Assembly, the Director General of Unesco, and the whole 148 member state constituency of the IOC Assembly. And it's being submitted soon for formal UN endorsement and establishment. It aims to be a vehicle for coordinated global actions in support of the ocean-related components of the UN's Sustainable Development Goal number 14. It's being championed by the IOC as a framework that would involve the entire global family of interrelated oceanic and related climate constituencies. And finally, let's just remember that climate change, emphasised today already, will continue to profoundly impact on all of the elements that make up the oceans. And so in closing, I hope I've offered at least some insight to strengthen the case for support for urgently needed global scale oceanic research and applications through multilateral, nationally based efforts for societal benefit and in the spirit of all of today's themes. I hope it's also helped reaffirm the value of these vehicles for knowledge transfer, capacity building, and generic strategic relationship building within and amongst countries in the zone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick D'Adamo. It's now time for a very, very short break, 20 minutes to be exact. Afternoon tea is being served on the terrace. Feel free to grab what you like and you can bring it back inside here because we'll be back in 20 minutes' time. We also have this video message from UWA Oceans Institute.